Chapter 24. Linda Finn was sound asleep in her bedroom on the ground floor of the house at around 5 p.m. Monday afternoon when the doorbell rang and jarred her awake. She never got enough sleep. She worked from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., 4 days a week, and occasionally on weekends for extra money. Such a weird schedule disrupted normal sleep patterns and kept her tired. And often when she would have been sleeping, she was wide awake, worrying about her bruising divorce, her worthless husband and his hard-nosed lawyer, and her two boys and the bad direction in which they seemed to be headed. Linda had plenty to worry about. The doorbell would not stop ringing, so she pulled on an old bathrobe and walked to the front door in her bare feet. She opened the door. Staring at her was Detective Worman with Jonah, and behind them were two police officers in full uniform. Behind them at the curb were two police cars with lights and all the usual decorative painting and decals. There was an unmarked car in the driveway. She put her hand over her mouth and almost fainted. Then she managed to open the storm door and said, "What is it?" Foreman flashed his badge, and Detective Scott Vorman, Strattonburg Police. "May I come in?" "What is it, Jonah?" he asked, horrified. Jonah looked at his shoes. "We need to talk," Foreman said, opening the storm door wider. She backed away, clutching her bathrobe to make sure she was decent. Foreman followed Jonah inside and closed the door behind them. In the driveway, Detective Hamilton sat in his car with Jesse in the passenger seat. "Are we going in?" Jesse asked. Hamilton replied. The two uniformed officers loitered on the front yard, smoking cigarettes. Across the street, a few neighbors were on their porches, watching with curiosity. Inside, Vorman found a seat in an old chair with holes in the fabric. Linda and Jonah sat on the sofa with battered cushions. "I'll get to the point, Miss Finn. The computer store on Main Street was broken into last Tuesday night. The thieves took some laptops, cell phones, and tablets, about $20,000 worth of stuff. Our prime suspects are Jonah and Jesse." He jerked around and glared at Jonah, who was still fascinated by his shoes. Foreman went on. "We've searched their lockers and backpacks, and so far we've recovered 5 of the tablets and one cell phone. We suspect the rest of the stuff might be hidden somewhere in his house. So we have a search warrant, signed by a judge, that allows us to look everywhere." "Everywhere?" Linda gasped, immediately thinking of the stacks of unwashed dishes in the kitchen sink, the piles of dirty laundry in the basement, the unmade beds, the undusted furniture and shelves, the filthy bathrooms, the litter in the hallway, the half empty glasses and cups in the den. And all of this was only in the downstairs. The upstairs, where the boys lived and she was afraid to go, looked worse than a landfill. "That's right," Foreman said as he pulled out the search warrant, handed it to her. She just gawked at it and shook her head. "Every room, every closet, every drawer," Foreman said, cranking up the pressure. Foreman knew no woman would want the police or anyone else poking through their house. "Is this true, Jonah?" she asked, her eyes suddenly wet. Jonah refused to speak. "Yes, it's true," Foreman said. "Jesse has pretty much confessed to everything, but he will not tell us where the rest of the stolen goods are. So we have no choice but to take the house apart and see if the stuff is here." "Is it here, Jonah?" she demanded. He glanced at her, another guilty look. "At this point, it's important to cooperate," Vorman said hopefully. "The judge will take it into consideration." "If it's here, tell them," she said angrily to Jonah. "There's no sense in making the police dig through our home." After a long pause, Vorman said, "Look, I don't have all afternoon and all night. I'm going to call for some extra men and we'll start by digging through the boy's bedroom." "Tell me, Jonah," Miss Finn growled. Jonah crossed his arm, spit his bottom lip, and finally said, "In the crawl space above the garage." Sitting in the unmarked car, Jesse watched with horror as the policeman walked out of the garage with armloads of laptops, tablets, and cell phones. Well, well, I guess they found everything, Hamilton said. Stay here. He got out of the car to go have a look. Jesse wiped a tear off his cheek. Linda Finn quickly got dressed and followed the police downtown. Jesse was riding in the car in front of her. Jonah was with Detective Warman in another car. She cried all the way, asking herself, how could this happen? What had she done wrong as a mother? What would they do with her boys? How would this affect her divorce and her battle to win custody of Jonah and Jesse? Would custody even be an issue if they were sent away? 100 questions raced through her mind as the little caravan moved through the streets of Strattonburg. At the police station, they gathered in a small room in the basement, and for the first time since that morning, Jonah and Jesse were face to face. Jesse looked as though he wanted to punch his little brother. Jonah was thinking what a rat his big brother was, but they could say nothing. Detective Hamilton took charge by saying, "This crime has been solved, and you boys are in some serious trouble. No sense in beating around the bush. You're not going home tonight, and you might not be home for quite a while." Linda started crying again. After a few sobs, she managed to ask, "Where are you taking them?" "There's a juvenile detention center down the street. They will appear at youth court the day after tomorrow, and the judge will decide what to do with them at that point. A formal hearing will be held in about a month. Any questions?" 1,000 questions, but none spoken. Detective Hamilton said, "I'm going to ask Detective Warman to explain your Miranda rights. Listen carefully." Warman slid across the 2 sheets of paper, one for each boy. "These are the same. Number one, you have the right to remain silent. Number two, anything you say in this meeting may be used against you in court. Number three, you have the right to an attorney, and if you can't afford one, the court will provide you with one." "Just like on television," Jesse said, the wise guy. "You got it," Foreman said. "Any questions?" "Okay, sign these forms at the bottom. Miss Finn, as their mother, you sign just under their names." The Finns reluctantly signed their names. Foreman collected the sheets of paper. Hamilton looked at Jonah and Jesse and said, "I've been through this 1,000 times, and I can promise you that the most important thing you can do right now to help yourselves is to cooperate. You're guilty. We know you're guilty. We can prove you're guilty. So none of this pointing fingers at everybody else. The judge, the same guy who decides if you are going to be sent away to juvenile detention for how long, will ask me in court if you boys cooperated. If I say yes, he likes that. If I say no, then he frowns and doesn't like that. Understand?" "I want a lawyer," Jesse said. We can sure get you one," Hamilton shot back. "Scott, take him to jail." Gorman jumped to his feet, snapped a pair of handcuffs off his belt, grabbed Jesse by the neck, pulled him up, and cuffed his hands behind his back. He opened the door and was about to take him away when Delinda snapped the table and said, "Wait a minute, I want the truth. I want you boys to tell me the truth. Sit down, Jesse. Sit down right here and tell me what happened." Warman released Jesse, who was stunned at the speed with which he got himself handcuffed. Carefully, he sat on the edge of his chair, his hands still cuffed behind his back. When everyone took a deep breath, Jonas said, "We did it because we needed the money." That's the end of chapter 24.